Welcome to Q&A Selling Online, with answers to questions about creating an online empire, promoting products, or building a brand. Your host, private label and e-commerce entrepreneur, Quinn Amorm.
Welcome back to the show, my friends. Today, we have a guest who is a commerce marketing strategist, analyst, and a content marketer with more than 15 years experience in email, mobile, and social media marketing. He's the director of content at Omnisend. For those of you that have not heard of Omnisend before, we had the CEO here on the show. It's a email and SMS automation platform focused on e-commerce. And last time I heard, they had more than 70,000 brands using Omnisend. He is also the host of a podcast called Cart Insiders, and he's here with us today, Greg Zakowicz. Greg, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
It's a pleasure having you here. And boy, do we have a lot of to talk about here with some changes that just came out, I believe, a few days ago. But
yeah, well, it's funny because I updated my phone and now I'm stuck. Apparently, it's a thing on Twitter, but I'm stuck with storage almost full notifications on there now. They don't have a resolution for it. So I'm one of those guys where I get this red dot at all times. Drive me nuts.
It would completely drive me nuts, Greg. I haven't updated my my iPhone yet. I never do it when the update comes out. I always wait a few days.
So I am the same way. I always wait. But I'm an email guy, and there were so many email things in here. I'm like, I got to update right away. I should have waited.
I know you would probably dying to know what these changes were, and then at the same time, now you're dying to get that red dot away.
It's crazy. I thought it was me. I went on Twitter. Everyone like this is happening to tons of people. So small things, right? Small things.
So before we get into the iOS 15. Here, let's talk a little bit about you. First of all, how are the Buffalo Bills doing?
So they are okay. I mean, I went through 20 years of just like mind-numbing football, right? So last year was a super fun year. It was a welcome breath of fresh air. My kids are at the age where they're into football now. So last year was good. Like they get to see good football. And so far this year, they've got some kinks on there. I'm a little bit concerned. I got Josh Allen thrown off the back foot an awful lot, but I hope they get it. I hope they get it together. They've got a good team. It should be another fun year, though.
Yeah, I just saw they had a nice 35-0 against the Dolphins, right?
Yeah, but they didn't. It's a little misleading. They didn't look 35-0 good. You know, the defense looks good, but their offense just is not clicking yet. So I trust they'll get that together. They got a couple games in a row here with backup quarterbacks. So it should help them out and figure those things out until they get the Chiefs.
Nice. So Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into anything else.
Sure. So I'll try to keep this somewhat short. You guys can just Google me, check me out on LinkedIn, whatever you want to do. I'm an open book, so feel free to connect with me as always. You mentioned in the intro, over 15 years of experience doing email marketing, which seems a little bit nuts, not only because I look young, but especially when I shave, but like 16, 17 years doing email marketing. If you think about that, you're like, man, were you the first one doing email? But no, it's been around longer, but it seems like a long time and it's gone really quick. So I've kind of been on all sides of email. I was a practitioner sending brand emails and trying to build a brand and run verticals to running marketing and overseeing marketing programs for companies. And then working for an ESP, which I worked for a company called Bronto for 8 years, which was acquired twice, NetSuite and Oracle. And there I was doing client consulting. So working with e-commerce brands, some in the IR 500, top brands there all around the world, where I would actually look at their email program and consult them on how to improve and drive revenue and make those programs better. So you talk about automation and launch SMS programs, and then went into like an analyst role. So following consumer trends and figuring out how shopping trends for e-commerce brands tie into email and SMS and all these channels. And almost 2 years ago now, I joined Omnisend. It was this great opportunity, this smaller startup that was had visions to do great things for the everyday brand, right? So you didn't have to have 20,000, your average contract wasn't $25,000, right? You could just do month to month, almost like a MailChimp, right? But so much better. So the opportunity was there and I'm like, this is great, right? So it checked all the boxes and I'm loving my time here so far. So it's good, but I've been in this email game for a long time, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. And being somebody that's been in email for so long, when you see something like Omnisend, does it, somebody that's on the outside, for example, like me, when I see a company like Omnisend, I'm like, this is so cool. Like, you couldn't do any of this before, and now you can automate things and do workflows, and it's kind of mind-blowing. So to you, was it the same, or did you notice slowly growing?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is automation in the email world is not necessarily new, but before it was to do really good automation, right, with splits and something to be a little more than just like, hey, sign up and send a welcome message, right? Actual automation on these things. You would use a company like Bronto or something that was higher, more mid-level to enterprise type esque. So you have your mom and pop shop or the small e-commerce store out there that doesn't have an unlimited budget. And they were kind of limited to what they could do from an automation standpoint. Omnisend, we want to democratize that, right? We want to say, okay, you're a small growing brand. You should have the same resource and the same tools available the bigger brands do without the cost to it. So that was super appealing to me, that they had figured out, hey, we can do this and this is how we do it. And then, it's so funny. They'll probably kill me for telling this story, but so when I joined them, I go over to headquarters and I spend a couple of weeks at headquarters, and so we're going through and I'm learning the platform. I'm like, hey, it'd be great if you could do this. And they're like, well, what's the use case for that? And I would tell them, they're like, all right, we'll have that by Friday. Right. It was like a Tuesday afternoon. Right. And then like Thursday morning, they're like, hey, we got that done. Right. They just move so quickly there. And I was like, there's this inherent focus on how do we provide value for the customers. We don't take outside funding. So we are organically grown. We are bootstrapped, which means our customers are our investors. So if we provide a bad product, they're going to leave and we're going to go bankrupt. Right. So there's this inherent focus on how do we make this tool better for the customers and give them what they need to drive revenue. And it was really cool because there were things like, I'm getting things out of there that I was asking for 8 years at Bronto, and just the nature of like how it was architected. And it was a great company, by the way, but the nature of how it was architected and things like that just didn't provide for the scale and speed where Omnisend, they got it, right? And it's getting better every single day, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is something incredible, because I know places where you find this cool add-on, something that can be added on to benefit everybody, and just the time it takes to decide if they're going to implement is longer than what you said, right? It sometimes can take a month just to say, yes, we will start working on it.
100%. I remember I was chuckling to one of my colleagues there. I'm like, what's going on? Like, what world am I living in here? But it's, almost 2 years later, and we're still doing this, right? We're going to talk about iOS 15 today, but even with this, like, it requires us to change our product, right? We need to adjust to this just as well. And we've been working on it, and we're making those changes, which is awesome.
Okay. So now, Greg, let's jump into the iOS 15. And when I first heard that iOS 15, there was, something on Facebook or whatever, iOS 15 is going to change for e-commerce. My first immediate thought was, who cares? I don't send any emails using a Mac, right? I use my PC and I go through platforms like, for example, like Omnisend to do my email marketing. So I figured it's not going to affect me. But now in reality, it affects everybody. So first, tell us what are these changes, and then we'll go into after, like, how can we adapt to those changes?
Yeah, so I'll boil, there's tons of changes in there. I'll try to boil it down succinctly to like just the email marketing side of world for e-commerce brands. But there's a couple different things. They call it mail privacy protection. There's a couple different things that this will do for you. So when you update, and the first time you open up your default Apple Mail app. So, some people have a Gmail app, which I do. I also have one of my Gmail accounts through my Apple Mail app. I have a Hotmail, I have a Yahoo, I have an Outlook. It's just in the game, right? So I got them all. Mm-hmm. Most of them I use through my Apple Mail app. So that the default mail application inside your iPhone. Most people use that for their email. So when first time you open that, you're going to be presented with this option where you can either opt out, which is the first choice, or scroll down and say, yeah, keep sending it there. But it's privacy protection. So what happens is a brand sends me an email and I opt out of they frame it in a way of like, do you want companies to track you, right? Mm-hmm. To know you open an email, right? So So most people, just like they did with 14.5 with the Facebook, the app tracking, will click, no, don't track me, right? So what's going to happen is, brand sends me an email. I open the email through this app. Doesn't matter what client it is, but I open it through the iPhone app or on Apple Mail if I'm on a Mac. What it's going to do is it's going to pull the cache of that message from Apple, not from the e-commerce brand or Omnisend or whatever email provider you're using to send it. So from the marketer standpoint, he's going to go, oh, Greg opened that message. I've got a 100% open rate for these people. What's happening is Apple's actually opening the message. And then when the user, so me, opens the message on my phone, it's pulling from the Apple side. So for marketers, they're going to see anyone using Apple Mail, they're going to see 100% open rate on these contacts. In reality, 100% open rate, you might still be getting a 12, 15, 18% open rate. But the marketer doesn't know, the company doesn't know. The consumer, me, is hiding this activity from the marketer. Now, we'll talk about this, but this has long-term ramifications and even short-term ramifications for a couple different things here. So that's one of them. That's probably the biggest change on here. IP tracking is also with this. So you think about if you're on Safari, which is the default, the native web app on iPhone, the same thing. Okay, I'm going to go to, gregsshoes.com. If you opt out of this, it's going to hide your IP. So when Greg's Shoes goes, hey, who's visited my site, or did Greg, who is on my subscriber list, did they visit my site? You're hiding my IP. So talk about like building out a geolocation profile will also get hidden here. Now there's one more thing, which I'm less concerned about. It's the iCloud Plus. So a subscription-based thing, you have the opportunity, which you've had this opportunity before, but to hide your email address as a whole. So you can make up an alias email address if you're a paid subscriber and choose to do this. So if you want to buy from gregsshoes.com, you can go through your checkout like usual. You will use this alias address. So the email address they give to me at Greg Shoes will be, Go Buffalo Bills at iCloud.com. And all the messages like the transactional, the order confirmation, shipping confirmation that I send to you will go to GoBuffaloBills.com, which will then be forwarded to my actual email address. So the marketer and the company has no idea what my actual address is. I'm less concerned about that. I think it's going to be lower adoption. I'll argue those contacts are probably not good marketable contacts from an email site anyways. So I don't really worry about that, but that is out there. Just want to state it. It's those hiding of the open rates, which is really what has email marketing in kind of this tizzy right now.
So until now, for those that are listening that don't know, in order to track an open rate on an email, there's a tiny image sent in the email. It's a beacon, right? And
Yep.
That beacon could be 1 pixel. And then so those beacons are still being sent. It's just that Apple opens all, no matter what.
Exactly. So I think you did a really good job explaining it. So I send an email out right on Omnisend. I send an email out. It's got this little 1 pixel image in there. When someone opens that pixel to load is loading out of Omnisend. So it needs to call back to Omnisend and say, hey, send it just like the image and your call to action and all that, right? Send this over to the email. So what's happening is Apple's intercepting that. They're opening it, which is calling back to Omnisend saying, hey, load this image for me. So we're going to track 100% open rate because these messages are all opening, but it's not the user opening, it's Apple opening it. All right. So that's a good job of explaining it. But yeah, there's that little image in there that's hidden. And that's how these things load.
Gotcha. So you mentioned how you have the Apple email on your phone where you have most of your emails. And I have the same thing. I have all going through that. But then I also have the Gmail app. And sometimes I open an email on both places. And then when I go to the desktop, for example, those emails, they still show unread on my desktop. Now, until now, if I open them on my iPhone, and then most of the times you know this for sure, when you open an email on your phone, you're on the go, you may not do anything with that email. You just read it and you think to yourself, okay, I got to do something about this later. And then at least I'm like that. When I get to my desktop, I may want to answer it from the desktop or simply already forgot about that. But does that, until now, would that be considered several opens?
No, so it'll still show the open. Most email providers will, if you open it multiple times, like they'll report on the unique opens. So if you open it 5 times, it'll just show the one open, right? So from the marketer standpoint, I think the challenge here is the example you gave, like we're twins here, right? We got the default iPhone stuff, the mail app, and then we both have Gmail things as well. So if you're on your iPhone and you use a Gmail app and open it through the Gmail app, we'll track, Apple will not intercept that. So that will be accurate. But if you go to, if you open it through your Apple, the default Apple Mail app, it'll show the open. Now, here's the thing with opens. Once you open it and we record that, like we can't take that open away. So if your market is unread, we still know you opened it, right? So open it one place doesn't really matter. Problem is if you're opening on the Apple side, right? And there's, based on reports, 40 to 50% of people using Apple Mail on their phones. We've run reports at Omnisend over the last couple months as well, tracking this stuff. We range between 40 and 50% of opens coming through the Apple Mail app as well. So if you think about it from a perspective, percentage wise, it's a lot of people, right? But if you have 40% open rates where you're not sure if they're actually opening or not, it makes all open rates less reliable at that point. You're like, okay, well, what do I do here? Impacts marketing strategy for sure. But even 5% unreliable makes it unreliable.
Yeah. And I'm now thinking so many things that this could affect. And I remember years ago where it's probably still done, where people would capture their lists through the user preference. For example, was this user on an iOS device or on a PC, for example? So the iOS list right now, you can never clean your list. You can never know if your list is clean anymore.
Yeah, and that's a challenge. So, most providers, Omnisend is something that we've worked. They talk about speed of engineering, right? So we now have the ability you can run segments and say, okay, these are the people opening on Apple devices, right? So we can track that, so you can percentage off those people. Now, cleaning the list is a challenge because for those that don't know, for the marketing side, you always hear email marketers tell you, hey, clean your list. And, I've been through this world firsthand with when I was consulting of people like, I've worked hard to build that list. I don't want to clean my list, right? It's a number. And, but there are reasons that people like me will tell you to clean your list. Deliverability is the number one reason for that. So for people that don't know, the reason you land in the junk folder or bulk folder, it's not one particular reason. There's a variety of reasons put together, but engagement of your contacts is one of those really important reasons. Gmail looks at this very hard. They were one of the first ones to really look at this, and the others have followed suit. So if you are sending to, say, 10,000 contacts and you are getting 10, 15% open rates, and then people start dropping off and you go to 14% and 13%, Google's looking at that and going, okay, well, you keep mailing people that aren't opening. You must not be cleaning your list. And one day you'll find yourself at 8% open rates, and the next day you're at 1%, right? And that was a way to say, okay, I'm being bulk mailed, right? But that's one of those reasons is there's IP-based reputation, domain-based reputation. There's a lot of other factors, but that is one of the big factors here. If I can't track your open rates properly, and that was one thing, haven't opened the message in 3 months, haven't opened the last 40 messages, let's clean those contacts out. If we lose that, what does that mean for our re-engagement campaigns? What does that mean for list cleaning? Because are we actually unsubscribing people who are opening, or are we keeping people who are not opening, but Apple's showing them open, right? Because they're intercepting it here and we're tracking 100% open rate. That's the one thing we don't quite know yet. We're too early in the game to figure out what's going to happen with this. And I think that's the one inevitable. We've got to change our mindset as marketers to get away from open rates, which I've preached against for years. So I'm kind of glad this is all happening. I might shoot myself in the foot 6 months from now, but I'm glad we're kind of getting away from open rates as like this North Star metric. But the deliverability impact here is probably the most important, not the most important, but it's one of the most unresolved questions about like, what does this actually mean for deliverability and list cleaning standpoint? I don't have a great answer for you, but we have historical data. So if you have data up until a couple of days ago, like there will be an adoption of iOS 15 over the next couple of weeks. So it's not like everyone updated day one. A lot of people are like you. And what I usually do is we wait to see what the bugs are before we update, before our phone becomes bricked. And then we'll update at that point. So I would say if you're an email marketer now and you are worried about this, or maybe you've been neglecting cleaning your list up until this point, I'd probably do that right now. Use your data now, capture those people, and start this thing off with a clean list, especially as we go into the holiday season here, Q4 marketing, and get yourself off to the right foot. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's one of the biggest unknowns here. It's one of the most interesting parts about this whole thing to me.
One of the things I used to do, for example, I sell on Amazon. And on Amazon, they have what iOS now calls the hide my email. On Amazon, it's always been that way, right? So the customer's email, you don't see the real one. But one of the things I always was proud of was that I could send a really compelling subject that would make people open the email. Okay, so on Amazon, it was very easy on Amazon. And I'll even tell you what it is. It was simply about your Amazon order, ... That was the subject. And people would always want to open it to find out what about the order. Now, if we don't know the open rates, there's no way to test if your subject A or B, like your A/B testing, which one would perform better, correct? Because you could test, but you would never be sure.
Yeah, the only way to really do that, and I do have a side story about your subject line too, which I think it's funny you use that, because I've got a story there. But the only way to really do that is you're going to have to now create segments for people who are opening via Apple Mail that are tracked. It's probably not going to be 100%, because you're always going to get some false negatives, false positives, just based on like different things. But create a segment of people, exclude them from the test, and then you've got to test to your leftover segment. But if you're going 40 to 50%, you're only testing on half your audience at that point. You're creating segments. Like, to me, it seems like a lot of work just to figure out some open rates here. I do have some advice for maybe ways to rethink that or reskin it. Now, one thing here is historical data. Like you gave a great story here about like, hey, this has always got to be really good open rates. Well, that doesn't change, right? You know what's going to get you that. So one, you have a historical baseline to compare that to. So if you start to see, hey, I'm using this subject line, it's an automated message, or it's to recent purchasers, and I've always got a 65 or 70% open rate on it. Well, now if you see that go to 100%, or say that's not right, but let's say it goes to like 87%, you get this automatic jump. It's an indication the subject line is still good, whether you track the opens or not, but you just see this unnatural jump, which is inflated figures there. Same thing if it goes the other way. So historical data really important here. It's still worth testing, right? Even if you don't have the results, you're like, hey, 2 subject lines could work here. Try them out, right? But then look beyond like, okay, great, I get you to open. What's the next step for me? Well, the next step, you want them to click, and then you want them to convert, and you want them to or take an action, right? Whatever conversion it means to you. It could be a product review. But, if I get, I used to tell clients this all the time. I'm like, listen, if I get you 100% open rate and a 0% click rate, would you take that? And they're like, well, of course not. And I'm like, so don't worry about the open rate so much. Like, let's get the most amount of clicks we possibly can. Now, if we get great open rates and a lot of clicks, gravy, right? And money in the bank. But we want to drive that action here. So even if you can't tell the open rates 100%, but you're seeing click activity with 2 different subject lines there, you kind of have an idea. Okay, we're getting more clicks here, probably have more opens there, but what's our click to send rate, right? And if that's going up, you know that the message is striking the right chord. That's what you want at that point. So, focus on those click rates a lot more now, and focus on testing the content of the emails, right? And figure it out, but use your historical data and use what you know has naturally worked well for your audience with the subject lines to get those opens there. Real quick on your subject line story.
Yes.
I'll make this quick. I told you before we started recording, I told you I'll ramble, man. So, post-purchase messages, good tip for email marketers here. So I used to tell clients, post-purchase thank you message, right? Send it the same day, the day after, 2 days after purchase. Thank them for the order. You can include an incentive if you want. You don't have to, but take them to customer service or take them somewhere, right? Something helpful, but just thank them. People love to be thanked. It's good communication building. Best subject line, bar none. Consistent 60+% open rate to recent purchasers. Subject line, thank you for your order. So we're right on par here. We got this, right? Worked every time though.
Greg, I'm going to elaborate a little bit of the content of that message. just here for the story. On Amazon, we're limited of what we can send, the number of emails we can send to the client. Mm-hmm. But if they reply, now you can reply to them and you can have an unlimited email back and forth as long as they reply to you. And we're not allowed to market to them something that they haven't bought from us, or like other products or whatever. So on that email, on the content, the email gets delivered the day that the product arrived. So when we get confirmation that they have received the product, now it triggers that email gets sent to this customer. And in that email, it says, your product is expected to arrive tomorrow. When you receive it, please let me know if everything was okay. But we already know they have it, right? So a lot of people want to reply to let us know that we're wrong, right? I already received the product. It's not coming tomorrow. It arrived today. And others message saying that shipping was fantastic. It arrived a day early.
It's all about expectations, right?
Yeah.
It's all about expectations. So one, great story. Two, great tip that people can use. Three, it sounds like you could use Omnisend's Amazon integration. Just saying, just a shameless plug. I know I had to throw it in there.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know you had it.
So we just launched it a couple of weeks ago. So okay. I'll send you a link offline. We don't have to digress here, but shameless plug. That's right. That's what I do.
That is useful because I'm really interested. So there you go. Now, when it comes to the iOS 15 and all these changes, you mentioned earlier the 14 or the 14.5 or something like that. There was changes that were changing the way Facebook, was it targeting or retargeting? But anyway, to accommodate Facebook, they changed it, right? And they delayed it for a few months. Do you think that's going to happen here?
No, so they delayed it, but it is still out there on the Facebook. So there was pretty mass adoption. They delayed it for, I think, maybe some phones or some settings, but for the most part, they had rolled that 14.5 out. I was talking to some brands where I'm just friendly with the guys about when this announcement about 2 months ago with 15 came out, and I dropped him an email. I'm like, hey, Darren, what are your thoughts on this thing? And he's like, I haven't even looked at it. I'm still trying to get my ROAS back in line from the 14.5 update, and I'm like, so like there's real world implications here that was hitting brands. And for those that don't know, it's quickly kind of died. It's the same. If you think about the same tracking restrictions or protections that email did, right? The old joke out there is like, oh, Facebook's listening to me, to everything I say, right? Because you always get the ad that's something you're talking about. But
yes,
chances are when you're talking about something, you're also looking at stuff on the phone, or there's something you saw on the phone that spurred that. And then, so what people don't know is you're on the Facebook app and then you navigate on Safari, or you're on a couple of different apps, right? That data is all being aggregated, and Facebook is getting that data, right? So they're putting data points together and saying, oh, Greg's talking about going to Key West for his anniversary, and he has gone to Key West before because we see pictures here, and he tagged the Key West photo out. Like, they're putting these data points together. So when you want to create a lookalike audience, you're like, hey, give me people who like tropical, southern tropical locations, who might be having an anniversary or planning a trip. Like, they've got these data points, they've got me pegged, right? And then at Instagram and Facebook, I start seeing all these ads for stuff. So what Apple did was say, okay, we're going to give users the choice to allow apps to track them everywhere they go, which of course they're going to say no to. And I think it was like 93%. I joke around, it's like 93% said no, and 7% of marketers said yes. And then, it's kind of do the same thing here, right? So, we're limiting the marketer's scope of data for what they can do with it. Now, I think the great thing about, like, again, Omisend, but other platforms as well, is we've gone to a stage where, you look back 7-8 years ago, if I want to send emails, I would use this platform. And I want to send SMS, I would use this platform. And if I wanted to do paid retargeting, I'd use this platform. And like, you had this data all over the place. So email marketers will look at email marketing data, and that's it, right? And that's what they did. And most of these platforms now, they have multiple things in one place. So, right, you might not be able to track opens. I could track clicks, but I can also create lookalike audiences directly with email activity. and create those lookalike audiences into my Facebook or Instagram account, knowing that I have this email activity to combine with the data I had before. So I think that's, or same thing on like Google paid, on Google ad networks. So paid search or retargeting on YouTube or whatever it is, right? If we have all this data in one place, we can then spit it out and use it more, more effectively. And from a cost perspective, make it less cost prohibitive for us. So we can increase the ROAS and use this data in one place for us. And SMS is another example, right? So we've got SMS in the same platform. Hey, stop opening or stop clicking on emails, but you're clicking on SMS. Do I need to retarget you on Facebook because you're still active with my messages? Well, maybe we want to save that money and retarget people who have stopped or have taken 6 clicks, right? And we want to retarget them to try to push them over the finish line. So like, there's so many great things, but 8 years ago, you were siloed. Now you have all this data in one place where you take away open rates. And I'm like, all right, it changes my perspective a little bit, but I've still got all this data that is probably more impactful for me where I can get over that. I'm good with that. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. So, and technically, like you mentioned earlier, the open rates were never your biggest goal. It was the clicks and the actions taken on those emails is what really matters, right? Because 100% open rate, 0 clicks means nothing.
Exactly. And 0% open rates, like I'm not getting clicks there. So like you got to have this balance there, right? There's got to be a balance associated with it. I think the bigger talking point is, maybe it's not even a talking point, but like the bigger concept is that if you're in email marketing or anything that involves an email, even if it's just tangentially, like everyone has grown up with open rates as being like that gold metric, right? That North Star metric. And that's just, it's a way of thinking. It's what you've grown up with. It's what you've been indoctrinated with. It's what you've lived your whole life. It's what executives, when you present these reports to them, they think open rates, right? Open rates, sales. Like those are the things they look at. And it's like, okay, I don't care about like split testing and stuff. Like those are the things they look at. So it's more of a mind shift than anything. It's like, okay, how do we break away from our traditional mindset, which there's nothing wrong with, of being open rates being that metric, to now changing that to activity-based stuff? Because the activity-based stuff is ultimately where you're going to find the most success. We talked about automations before, and I'll give you a perfect example of this. So we do these stats reports at Omisend. We did them quarterly, and then a year one last year. We just published our first half stats reports. They're not gated. So if you go to our resources section, you can find them there and just peruse them and look at them as you wish. You don't have to give us any information for it. So last year, 2020, we looked at billions of emails, SMS, all this stuff. Automations drove 29% of all email orders on 1.8% of email sends. So far for the first half of 2021, billions of emails sent, 32% of all email orders on 2.4% of email sends. So if you think about this, 32% of all email orders are coming from automated messages, and it's not even 2.5% of your total email sends. Well, why is that? Well, they have high clicks, higher than average opens, higher than average conversion rates, because they're relevant messages, right? So I abandoned a shopping cart. I trigger off this. I visited your website, but I don't cart a product. You can trigger a message based on either products or category products I'm viewing. I sign up for an email program. I get a welcome message or welcome series. I make a purchase. I get a post-purchase message. I don't purchase in a while. Like we're triggering these all based on behavior-based messages, right? User does or doesn't do something. Automation is sent. It's a timely. It's the epitome of that, like that old cliche: right message, right time, right customer, now right channel. It's the epitome of that because it's only triggering based on what the actual user is doing. So if we look at the automation side and say, okay, we know relevant messaging matters, but realistically, the everyday e-commerce brand's not going to segment their audience 10 different ways, because that means they need 10 different email creatives. No one's got time for that. It's just not, from a resource limitation, it's just not scalable for most brands. So if we start shifting our focus on activity, engagement with messages, even if it's a batch and blast message, we shift our mindset away from opens and into clicks. What is the engagement? It's the legs that feed the wolf, right? That's going to get you, okay, is this message, do we design this message the right way? Is that the right image to use in there that's going to get the clicks and ultimately the conversions, right? Versus, is that the right emoji to use in the subject line? And I love emojis and subject lines, by the way. Use them a lot, especially Q4, use them all the time. But like the mindset shifts. Let's convey the message better. Let's worry less about the open rates or, the opens of it, and put the money where, let's put our resources where we're going to get the best bang for the buck. And that's going to be in the activity-based stuff. So I hope I explained that clearly enough. But like, if you have that subtle mind shift, your email marketing is going to be more effective for you. You're going to increase the sales a little bit more. That's the beauty of it. Now, let me holistically put this all together for you, if I can. I know.
Yeah. I love it.
So we talk, my big saying, and I'm not, it's not unique to me. I love the movie Miracle, the US hockey team, right? One of my favorite movies. There's a saying in there from the coach, the legs feed the wolf, right? The legs feed the wolf, gentlemen. And I say that all the time with email marketing, right? So if we talk about engagement-based stuff, all right, let's shift away from the open rates. Let's focus on making the message get the most amount of clicks, right? And I've talked about automations being behavior-based, so they're driving more revenue. If I can increase my clicks to an everyday message, say 5%, right? I've got 5% more people now going to my website. Say none of them cart a product. They just go there, right? But they're checking something out. Well, why'd they click? Well, something in their life has taken them to click. Could be a new product, could be they're shopping for something, could be they've checked their email, they've opened it. So something in their life is going there, and they all bounce. All right, I'm not buying today. Doesn't mean they're not interested. Maybe they're just not interested right now. Maybe they're like you and they're like, I'll get to that later, right? If you have automation set up that now can trigger based on products or category of products you're browsing, you now trigger a automated behavior-based messaging to the user in the background. You didn't do anything. Then maybe piques my interest again, or reminds me that I checked out whatever, a new pair of Uggs or something, right? Whatever it could be. So now I've got this. Maybe I go back and I cart the product and then I get a abandoned cart message, right? But you're setting yourself up by increasing clicks on an everyday scheduled promotional message to then drive your automation, which is behavior-based and converts better and opens are better and clicks are better and everything's better. You start feeding the wolf a little bit, right? So more engagement, higher open rates. So whether it's trackable or not, now higher open rates, what's that mean? That means Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, anyone who is using open rates to track metrics now has another open rate in their belt, right? It gets you closer, but now you have more click activity. So do I want to retarget them on Facebook or Instagram? Maybe, maybe not based on the click activity, but I've got more activity, more data to use now. I could there's so many things I can do with just an email click on a Tuesday, batch and blast message that before the focus is all on open rates. It's like, okay, what's my open rate like? So this is like, I nerd out about this stuff, right? I geek out about it, but there are so many great things we can do from this. So there's a lot of fear about what does this ultimately mean? I look at it as a good thing. And I'm like, what it means is that you can be even more effective, right, with your email. For the marketer, the more effective they are, right, they can get promotions, they can get a raise, they can kind of do whatever. It helps them too. So.
Yeah, so that's amazing. Now, one of the things I want to go ahead and touch on was you mentioned that you love emojis on the subject.
Yes.
It's one of the things as an email receiver, as the person that receives the email, I tend to junk those.
Get out, do you?
Yes, as a receiver. Now, it may be because I'm a marketer as well, and I know all the emails that have emojis are going to try to sell me something. But there are certain words that I automatically junk, and anything that mentions crypto, for example, now it goes directly into the junk folder. And emojis. Now, there's something else, and I wanted to ask. I'm not saying they're not good. Emojis, like you said, they're good on subjects. That's why we get them a lot. But I see some that have the subject bold or even bold and italic. And those, by default, when I look at my emails in G Suite, those are always in the spam folder, not by me. They're put there automatically. Now, is that because they are spam, or is that technique considered spammy?
It's a really good question. I don't have a definitive answer for you yet. I've never really advised anyone to do italics in their subject lines. Now, I'm like you, the wording's a little bit different. So if I go to my Gmail bulk folder, I'll see those italics. The font is a little bit different, it's odd. My guess is that is a flag. Most of those things are actually spam though, right? They're coming from, they're actual spam ones versus branded ones. So it's got to be something which you would think you would think spam agents would just like use regular text. I don't know. Like, it just makes sense. Like, use Arial. I don't know. Why do we have to use this fancy stuff? Right. They're trying to do something there. I don't know what the like the proactive to reactive side of that is. I just don't know. I would advise you, until we know, to avoid any sort of use of italics or stuff like that. We know emojis won't impact your bulk foldering. We know that it's like these old rules, right? B2B, a little bit different. B2B, you have different filters, right? Because you're going through firewalls and company spam filters, which are a little bit different. So definitely, my advice is definitely here more on the D2C side. So take that for what it's worth.
Yep.
But we know emojis are not going to get you even like 10 emojis in a row, whether it's in the pre-header text or the subject line. You're not going to get bulk mailed for that. All capital letters, you're fine. 5 exclamation points in a row, you're fine. Using the word free, percent, like you're good with all that, right? We've that used to be one of those old filterings for D2C. We've moved beyond that with DMARC certification, IP-based, domain-based reputations, engagement metrics. Like ISPs have gotten smarter about that.
Okay, that's one of the doubts I had, and I try to avoid using the word free because I know in other contexts it's not welcome all the time on subjects I didn't know. So there's no repercussions.
For D2C, you're fine, right? Because you think about free shipping. Like free shipping is just standard now. True. So like you try to tell a brand like you can't promote your free shipping. They're gonna look at you and be like, all right, we'll see you later, Greg. Get out the door, right? Go. Now B2B, or if you're sending to like a branded domain. So if you're sending like Greg at Greg Shoes, by the way, Greg Shoes is probably out there, but it is not me. So I'm just Greg Shoes. If you're actually out there, you get free plugs today, right? So like if you're going to Greg at GregShoes.com, you might have a different issue with it, right? The free might trigger whatever filtering they're using. But if you're going to a major ISP like Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo, something like that, you'll be fine.
Awesome. Now, Greg, I know that you speak at events and you spoke at all the big events and related to e-commerce. So if anybody wants to have you at their event, speaking about anything e-commerce related, email, marketing, or if they want to know more about you as a person or more about Omnisend, where would you send them all?
Yeah. So I'll give you all sorts of places. So Omnisend's the easy one, omnisend.com. If you want to reach me at Omnisend, it's just Greg at omnisend.com as well, 1G. So feel free. Like I said, I'm an open book. Feel free to shoot me an email. You can always, if you want me to come present or lead a workshop or anything through Omnisend, feel free just to shoot me an email there. Great way to get a hold of me. I am on LinkedIn. Just spell my last name right, but auto pop. There's not many of me in the US, so you'll find me. So LinkedIn, feel free to reach out to me, connect with me. Just if you do send me a friend request, let me know why you're sending me a friend request. I usually decline just generic ones without any sort of note in there. I'm on.
Too late.
Hey, I'm guilty of it sometimes too. I'm on Twitter at What's Greg Doing. So very old, back when Twitter used to be about what you're doing. So what's Greg doing? And I just kind of stuck with it and known that. You can go to gregzakowicz.com if you want to. There's a little bit about events I've spoken at, things I've written for press publications, links to podcasts there too. So you just search me and you'll find me. But I love speaking. You can tell when I get into it, right? So I would love to come speak for your company or do anything you want, speak at an event. I'm there for you. So let me know.
There you go. So Greg, you're going to have my LinkedIn connection. It was sent without a message. And I'll explain just before I let you go. The reason why I do it is because I get a ton of invites and I'm close to the 20,000 connections now. But when I open the list and they have the message before the connection, 90% of those messages already have a sales pitch on it. So if they all had messages and I would have to read all of that, normally if it's okay, Greg wants to connect with you and I'm like, oh, he doesn't have a sales pitch, I go and I accept it right away. So because I didn't like that when it's done to me, I just send without message.
So it's so funny. Like this is like the LinkedIn strategy session now. So like, I don't need that to be really long. It can be, by the way, I'm navigating to, this is terrible for a audio audience, but I'm looking right now to see if I actually accepted your friend request or not. So you could probably look while I'm talking if you want, which I find interesting. But so I've done a couple of things on LinkedIn. One, the note does not have to be long. It could be just like, hey, heard you on XYZ podcast, right? Cool. So I'm fine with something super short, or, you know, you're handsome. That always works. You always catch me, right? So that's always a good one. The other thing that I started doing as well, and this was when a lot of automation was going around, like I put an email or like a mail envelope in front of my first name. So when I see that message in there, I know it's automatically filled up, and I'm like, all right, you're spamming me now, right? You know, the sales pitch is coming. So it's cut down on a lot of stuff. I still get them every now and then, which is fine. Like, I love salespeople, right? I've done sales before. I work with salespeople. Like, I love it, but I don't know. Ask me how I'm doing before you pitch me something. I don't know. It's a small thing.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly my point, right? Don't give me the pitch before you even introduce yourself. So I rather you don't say anything than try to sell me on the very first second.
Yeah. I mean, people got to buy stuff, right? There's software out there that can legitimately help a company, and tools out there that you might not know about until the guy talks to you. So like, I try to give them a little bit of benefit of doubt, but I need more than just like an accepting friend request and then you try to sell me something. Like, that's not, to me, that's not the way to win my business. That's not how you're going to get in with me. And I will defriend you right away, right? Yeah. You are gone at that point. So
I actually had a very funny one. Some guy sent me a message on LinkedIn, and he was so honest. He said, if you think I'm not here trying to sell you something, you are wrong. So he said, I'm going to introduce myself, and eventually I'm going to try to sell you something. And I'm like, he's so honest that I actually like this approach. Right? If you think I'm not going to try to sell you something, you're wrong.
Well, you know, anything you could do to kind of to stand out there. So, hey, if it works for that guy, great. You know.
So everybody that's listening, Greg Zakowicz, I'm going to have all the links on the show notes if you want to check them out. Greg, it was a pleasure having you here. We're obviously going to stay in touch. And as soon as we hang up here, I'm going to go check out your Amazon connection.
Yeah. And, any feedback on it, like I said, it came out about 2 weeks ago. We're still, we move quick here. So we're still making improvements, and we're open those things. So if you look at it and you're like, hey, it'd be great if it could do this, like if there's something missing, let us know, send it to me and I'll shoot it over to them. So, it's something where Amazon reached out to us and it was like, hey, do you want to build this? We have a need for it. So we tried to build it. It's, my opinion, if you're an Amazon seller, it's good. And you also do email marketing, but it is brand new. So we're always open to feedback, whether it's product feedback or anything. That's kind of how we thrive over here. So please let me know, even if it's offline. Just, hey, it'd be great if you could do this or whatever. And we take that to heart.
Awesome. I will do that.
So thanks so much for having me. I appreciate you just letting me talk and ramble and geek about this. But
it's a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you.